Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and everyone's talking about Nepo babies again. Yes, the Nepo baby conversation is back, mostly because of Tu Hollis, rapper, singer, songwriter, producer, and one of the most viral music sensations to bubble up out of the underground over the last few years. But as his popularity has grown, more and more fans have sort of been drawn to his backstory, with some calling into question the legitimacy of his success and come up due to the fact that he has parents that are very successful and well connected in the music industry. His mother being a super talented publicist who's worked with greats such as Daft Punk, and the list goes on. And then there is Tu Hollis's father, drummer and one of the founding members of the legendary post-rock outfit Tortoise. Now this info was enough to get some people talking, obviously, but the conversation around Tu Hollis's rise to fame has grown even larger in the wake of this new New York Times Popcast episode, where Tu Hollis came on to discuss not just this topic, but many others with his dad, John Herndon. John is literally sitting right next to Hollis as they move through topics relating to the internet and fame, and also Hollis's journey as a musician too, which is interesting not only because he describes music as not even really being a priority for him for years, but then as he progressively got a little more into it, his focus on making music and producing and writing got so much more intense around the COVID pandemic, citing the fact that he had pretty much nothing else to do, which I think says so much about his sound and his style, because I've long seen Tu Hollis's music as being like an amalgamation of so many different trending sounds and styles on the internet. So around that time, you did have a lot of strange niche electronic music styles bubbling up at the time, hyperpop, rage. So again, him making waves around that time specifically, when he was focusing on making music the most and probably consuming a lot of what was happening at the time too on the internet musically. Again, it just makes way too much sense. But with that being said, eventually in this discussion, we do get to the Nepo baby topic, which I'll be honest is introduced almost as if it was planned. Like we're going into this knowing we are going to address this topic. I don't see why else you would have your dad there. I mean, respect to John. I like Tortoise, and I love the fact that his musical talent and abilities have been passed down a generation, obviously. But personally, I just find this to be such an odd way to address this. And while in one breath, I feel like the whole Nepo connection thing was embraced.
I know my truth, which is, yes, I am very fortunate and blessed to be born into a house where I was shown incredible music at an early age. And I was introduced to artists all my life. I was going to shows. Yes, I was meeting influential artists early on.
In another, I feel like Hollis was much more aggressively putting forward the idea that like, yeah, all of this was me, and this is my mission and my vision, and so on and so forth.
However, my own career, Tu Hollis, Drippy Soup, whatever, from the fucking beginning to the end, like it was my mission. And yes, it was helped by you getting me things and showing me influences and whatever, but I was always so focused on, I want to do this my way. And it's actually funny. When I was younger, like early days, I like blocked my mom on Instagram, and I was like, do not show my music to anyone. And she'd be like, can I please show it to like whatever her friend that works at whatever? I'd be like, no, I want to do this myself. And like my mom has never worked me. She's never pushed me. I've never been represented by her. He's never like no one's ever put me anywhere. Like everything I have, it's been me.
For sure. No doubt it is. I don't believe that Tu Hollis's career is where it is simply because a music exec decided it would be so. Nobody's holding this guy at gunpoint, making him make this music and have this career. I feel like the discussion wasn't really acknowledging fully the privilege of Tu Hollis's upbringing in regards to him opting for a career in music, number one. And there also wasn't an attempt to truly dive into why the Nepo baby issue is an issue in the first place for a lot of music fans. First off, we kind of need to accept that, sure, while Tu Hollis's father isn't, basically forcing him into this career, forcing him to be a success, the little legs up that he was getting along the way and encouragement he was receiving as somebody who was just kind of dabbling in music as an adolescent, as a teenager, that's also kind of everything, especially when you're coming from this background of performers and seeing performances on such a regular basis. Also, let's just talk about how much of a difference it probably makes in any kid's life to sort of pitch to their parents the idea that, hey, I think I might want to become a musician, a performer, and like not have your parents laugh in your face as a response, or not have them completely poo-poo the idea and maybe have you kick the can down the road and encourage you instead to go to college, which, yeah, for sure is like the more sensible choice there. Look, all I'm saying is that these little things, even something as simple as your dad getting you Ableton as a present, can make a really big difference, can be a really big deal in terms of getting the ball rolling on somebody taking music seriously. And look, that's not the only thing in this conversation as Tu Hollis and his father go over his childhood and his trajectory that just seems so foundational and so significant. And then it's kind of written off in a way as he describes what he does currently as just like, completely his and his mission and so on and so forth.
I mean, Hollis figured out like how to get stuff up on SoundCloud, how to put get stuff on the streaming services, how to edit his own movies, how to did everything himself. And people saw it and liked it and loved it. And, Ken Carson saw it and was like, come on tour with me. And that was all because of what Hollis had done for himself. That had nothing to do with his mom or me.
And again, this whole thing just like kind of feels like different groups of people and perspectives talking past each other. Because while I do think Tu Hollis does downplay a little bit the significance that his parents kind of played in his success, simultaneously, I don't personally buy into the conspiratorial mindset that Tu Hollis's popularity is being forced upon us. And the only reason he is famous is because of his parents. Because look, this may not be something that but I'm getting handed records and songs and projects and mixtapes and demos from all types of people all the time. Lots of people who are trying to make it in the music industry, frankly. Some of whom do have parents that are actually very successful or even very rich. And I've seen some people in some bands, even with all of the money and all of the opportunities in the world, still end up failing and wallowing in obscurity because they just couldn't hack it, or their music, their art, the way they pitched it to the world just didn't resonate.
If people didn't love Hollis's music, it wouldn't matter if me or his mom put him up there or got him whatever. It wouldn't matter.
There's no amount of equipment you could buy him that was going to make him a star.
And the truth is
exactly.
It is what it is. Having successful or famous parents doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make it in the music industry. However, it can give you a massive leg up and access to resources your average person doesn't necessarily get. And that's the real reason why I think the Nepo baby conversation continues to resonate and grab people's attention. Because, yeah, there are a lot of fans that, while they do enjoy music and they consume it, they don't really know how the industry works. So as a result, it's just kind of easy to fill in those information gaps with just, oh, this person knows this person, so that's why they're successful. When in reality, it's actually more the resources and the access to tools and information, the exposure to this world that actually ends up helping people a lot more in the long run. And this is the sort of thing your average person doesn't usually get so close to unless they have the money to get close to it, or unless they're kind of born into it by virtue of having family members who are in the industry. Which is why, one, I feel like a lot of this conversation should be centered more around how do we create a world and an economy and a music industry where your average person has more resources, more money, more free time to be able to pursue things like the arts if they so choose, because it shouldn't simply be something only the wealthy have access to. But also, second part of this, with Tu Hollis specifically, it's kind of hard to be mad because I'm just seeing him be successful at something that his relatives before him have proven to be successful at. Maybe it's a distinction without a difference, but I take less offense at a musician with successful musician parents than I do a musician with, successful Raytheon executive parents. And again, it seems like Tu Hollis's success comes more from the fact that he had this exposure and this access and these resources. And I'm not here arguing that he shouldn't have had those things. I feel like a wider swath of people should have access to those things and should get them by virtue of not simply being related to other people who had them before him. That's really all I'm saying. It's less being upset about what Tu Hollis has, which I don't think anybody should be, because we should be more upset about the idea that why do you need to be born into this very specific context and situation in order to get this? That shouldn't be the case, especially for something as amazing as the arts. It's art, it's creativity, it's communication. We should all be able to do it if we so choose, but not in a super stupid, lazy AI way. Not like that. In fact, part of the pitch of AI is that it's so difficult to get the time and resources necessary to become a great musician. Why not just cut a few corners and have AI generate it for you? But yeah, at the end of the day, like I've said before on this issue, I feel like the focus should not be on being angry at Tu Hollis, because it's a lot more constructive to attack this from the standpoint that this is just a symptom of a larger issue. But there you go. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments. I'm sure you will. And over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Anthony Fantano, Tu Hollis, Nepo babies, forever.